What is up, YouTube? Johnny here again today, and we're going to be bringing you episode 13 of the project IS300 build. So to continue it on, we're going to be doing some maintenance. I've been driving it for about 2 days now, and the gas mileage is terrible, to say the least. It's about twice more gas being consumed than my FRS, so that's not good. So in this episode, we're going to go ahead and change the spark plugs and give it a little bit of fuel injection cleaning. Because if you guys noticed in the previous video, or one of the beginning videos of when we started the build, I actually showed you guys the spark plugs, and they are disgusting. So we're gonna go ahead and replace them with this. These are NGK Iridium spark plugs. These will run you about $9 each, so we need 6 of them. So it gets a little pricey, but they're really good spark plugs and they'll last you for a long time. I've heard that the rating is up to 100,000 miles. Obviously you change them before that, but that's pretty good, you know, for the amount of money that they cost. They still last you quite a bit, and they're actually really good for performance. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more horsepower out of the car with, you know, with the spark plugs, because the ones it has in there are terrible. So let's go ahead and change those. The process to remove and replace your spark plugs is actually fairly simple on the IS300. When you think about it, you know, when you want to replace them on an FRS or a BRZ, which is, you know, what my other daily driver is or was, it's a lot more difficult because of the fact that it's a boxer engine, so the spark plugs are to the side. So if you guys look here, I have an engine of one of those, so this is where they're at, and the chassis is literally right beside this. So it's possible to get it out if you lift the engine, pull it out a little bit, and you know, you stick your hand in there, and it's a little bit difficult to get it, but you can do it. So the easiest way to change the spark plugs on one of these engines is to actually remove the engine. As you see here, we removed it from this FRS over here. Gonna do a little bit of work to it, but yeah, these are not easy at all to replace, so I'm not looking forward to replacing them on my actual FRS. So let's go ahead and get started on removing the spark plugs on the IS300. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started by removing all of these covers. Spark plugs are directly on top of the engine, straight through the middle. So you guys can see that there is the throttle body that is in the way of it. So we're gonna have to go ahead and remove that. That's probably the most difficult part of doing the spark plug change, is actually removing that and being able to get the spark plugs out, you know, in a nice, easy manner. If anything, we can remove at least a little bit of the intake, but if it's not necessary, it'd be easier to just remove the throttle body. So let's do that. Alright, so to go ahead and start by removing all of this stuff, we're gonna need to get all of these connections. We have one here, we have one here, we have one here, and we have the throttle cable. So we actually need to remove all of this so we can go ahead and move this out of the way. So to get it started, they're just simple clips. Just go ahead and unclip them. Oh, that one came off easy. To remove your throttle cable, what you have to do is actually press this a little bit, and then you pop it out like that. That's all you need to do. And your throttle cable is out of the way. Another sensor here. And that seems to be everything apart from 2 hoses, which is this one here and this one back here. So what these do is route coolant through your throttle body to keep it cool. We're gonna go ahead and try to just move it over a little bit. So to go ahead and remove this, we're gonna need to take off these bolts right here that are 12 millimeters. I think there's another one down here. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky. The easiest way to remove it would be to remove the lines that go to the throttle body that run antifreeze through the system. But then you're going to be having to clean up a little mess and then go ahead and top off your antifreeze again. If that's something you want to do, go ahead, by all means, go ahead and do that. I like to work around the system a little bit, so what I'm going to do is actually remove the stud that's on the bottom, just to be able to move the throttle body, you know, to a different position, so I can get to the spark plugs without having to actually disconnect all of my antifreeze lines and have a mess everywhere and have to top it off again. I'd rather just be able to move it around. So to do that, you need a special key to be able to remove that. I'm actually just going to be using a 5mm socket. So let me show you guys how I do that. So that gets the stud out and gives you more lenience to move around the throttle body. Alright, so you guys can see the throttle body can move around, and I actually was able to pull it far enough so where it lines up with the spark plug area. So now I know that this isn't going to be in the way, but it looks like this little rubber mounting bracket is going to be in the way. It only has 3 12mm screws, and then after that we should just be able to go ahead and remove all this without having to make a mess of antifreeze and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and remove these. There's one. There's another one here. See if I can get to this one. If not, I'm gonna have to use a wrench. And there's one more at the bottom. So let me go ahead and get a wrench to do this one. All right, now that we can see everything, we're gonna go ahead and start unplugging stuff and getting all of the cables off. So we gotta unplug. Here goes the first one. There's some more over here next to the throttle body. There's another clip. I'm gonna go ahead and push on those and pull on the cables, and then just pop them right out. There we go. Got that out, and then there's one more over here. Looks like there's a total of 3. There goes another one. So we have 1, 2, 3 of these. So we're gonna go ahead and remove these also. Alright, so now the next step is to remove the cables and the ignition coils. So we have 3 ignition coils. Each one of them is set up to hold 2 spark plugs. So one of them just goes directly to a spark plug, and then you have a cable that goes to the other spark plug. So to remove these, if you look in here, there's a 10mm bolt on each one of them. So we're gonna go ahead and start off by removing those. Make sure you remember where each one of them goes, that way you don't get lost or confused. They're actually labeled by number also. Let's go ahead and remove this one. Make sure you don't drop this in there. And there goes the first one. It's loose. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to the next one. Okay, so I was able to go ahead and get all of the ignition coils loose by taking off that 10mm bolt on each of them. They only have one on each of them, and then the rest of the cables were actually, I was able to pull them off, so everything is loose now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, and it might help you, is to just replace one at a time. So I'm going to replace the spark plug, put the cable back on, or the coil pack, and then move on to the next, just so that way I don't get confused or get mixed up and then mix, you know, cables with the wrong ones, and then you have your ignition timing all off and then the car's like misfiring. So we don't want that. In this case, it doesn't look like it's possible. I don't know, anything's possible, but it looks like it makes it a little bit difficult for you to be actually able to mix the cables in this. But just as a precaution, and in case you're doing it to another vehicle, we're gonna go ahead and do it one by one, just to make it a little bit easier. You don't want them to be too tight, so that's why when I grab the ratchet, I don't grab it on the end, I grab it right here, just so it limits my power and strength. That way it's tight enough, but not too tight to the point where you can actually damage your head. The next one is right underneath this ignition coil. So now that it's loose, you just pull it out. Bam, it's out. And it shows us where the second spark plug is at, which is right there. Now we go ahead, continue on with the next spark plug. It's a little dirty in there, but there's nothing really you can clean it with other than with just a rag. Because if you try to wash it with degreaser and water, it's gonna get into your engine block. Ooh, this one's really nasty. Look at that. When they start leaking from here, it means that they're actually losing compression because the compression is going through the spark plug and out, which is not good at all. So that's why these need to be replaced. Alright, so that's the first two done. It's literally just an ignition coil with these two little connections, which are the cables, and then the little electronic plug for the ignition coil. So that's two of them done. On to the next two, and then the next two. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Alright guys, all of the spark plugs are off. You guys can see here, that's how they looked. We have some that had corrosion, rust. Some of them were passing compression. For the most part, on the tips, they didn't look too bad, but they were actually, losing compression already, and they looked really nasty. So might as well change them. Part of the tune-up process to get better fuel economy. These looked like they were just NGKRs, so they weren't actually the Iridiums. These cars are supposed to take the Iridiums from factory, so it's the OEM specs. That's why we went ahead and put those on. They're a little bit more expensive, but like I said, they're made to last at least 100,000 miles. As long as you take care of the car, you use good fuel and you do all your oil changes on time, there shouldn't be a reason for you to replace them before that. So now we got all the spark plugs in there, went ahead and connected all of the connectors. The ignition coils are connected, the cables are all connected. So now it's just a reverse order. We're just putting back everything the way it was before. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera because it's getting a little dark, and then I'll show you guys it running again. All right guys, finally finished it up. Putting it all back together was actually really quick since you already know exactly what to do. I probably did it within 10 minutes. It took me longer to actually take it apart, but putting it back together was really easy. So now the last thing you want to do to make sure that you actually did a good job and that everything went back together smoothly is to actually turn on the car. So if the car turns on and it's misfiring, you messed up on something. So try to think back to see what you might have done wrong. But if it turns on perfectly the first time and it's not misfiring or anything, you did your job. Let's go ahead and turn it on. There it is, turned on right away, even without the keys. So looks like we did a good job. That's it for the video, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below. And you have a great day.